The Roadside Lesson in Kindness. Nikki, an old family friend, told me this story countless times as I grew up. It was her cautionary tale, a life lesson that has stuck with me forever. To this day, the mere mention of hitchhiking sends a chill down my spine. It was the early 80s. Nikki, then in her mid-20s, was a real kind-hearted soul, the type always willing to help. She was driving into the city, about a 2-hour trip, when she spotted a man walking on the roadside. In typical hitchhiker fashion, he stuck out his thumb. Nikki, bless her heart, pulled over and offered help. He was polite, if a bit shy, and asked for a lift into the city. Nikki smiled, opened the passenger door, and he tossed his bag into the back seat, buckling up for the ride. They talked pleasantly for most of the trip. It seemed they were getting along well. Midway, at a pit stop, Nikki even treated him to dinner. He seemed flustered, but admitted he was strapped for cash, which was why he was hitchhiking in the first place. He eventually relented, and they continued on their way. Once in the city, he profusely thanked her for the food and the ride, asking to be dropped off downtown. Before getting out, he asked for her phone number to maybe catch up someday. Thrilled that her new friend was faring well, Nikki wrote it down and drove off with the warm feeling of having done a good deed. The true horror of this story hit me when Nikki recounted the next part. A week later, she got a phone call from the very man she had picked up. He didn't let her get a word in, starting immediately. "You should thank God you were raised so nice," he stated in a low, tense voice. "When I first got in the car, I was planning on raping and murdering you once we got to that pit stop. I was going to steal the car and dump your body in a ditch further down the road, then go on my merry way." A deep, bone-chilling silence followed. The man continued, "But after you talked to me so kindly and even treated me to dinner with a smile on your face, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't live with myself after doing that to such a nice lady." His final words were a plea. "Please, Nikki, please never, ever pick up another hitchhiker." He hung up. She never heard from him again. When she tried redialing, it was a payphone. I learned one terrifying lesson from that story. Never, ever stop.
The wrong hitchhiker. I've learned one thing from my single experience picking up a hitchhiker. Don't pick up a hitchhiker. It was a Saturday night, probably around 1 in the morning. I was driving down the 542 in New Jersey, a long, dark stretch with nothing but woods. Not a single other car was on the road. I flipped on my Jeep's off-road lights, and in the harsh glare, I spotted a figure far down the road. As I neared, he raised his arm and stuck out his thumb. A hitchhiker. My heart started pounding. I slowed down to get a better look. He seemed like a younger man, maybe 28, wearing a light gray hoodie with the hood pulled up and blue denim jeans. I had to make an immediate decision. Against my better judgment, I stopped. "Where are you heading to, friend?" I asked. "Just up the road," he replied in a deep, quiet tone. "Hop in," I called out the window. He slowly opened the door to my Jeep and stepped inside. Wrangler doors have tight seals, and he didn't shut it the first time. "Oh, the door didn't shut," I said politely. "Just open and slam it shut real hard. These doors are tough." The body language he gave in response was profoundly unsettling. He looked at me, then slowly turned his head to the right, waited 3 or 4 more seconds of strained silence, and only then opened the door and slammed it shut. The way he moved was so unnatural and deliberate that I instantly regretted my decision. I floored the gas. The speed limit was 55, but I was going 75, desperate to get him to his destination faster. "So, how far did you say you're going?" There was an awkward, lingering silence before he replied, "Just a few miles up." I wanted to turn on the radio to kill the creepy silence, but something in my head screamed not to. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. The man had turned his head and was staring directly at me. For a good mile, I felt his gaze hitting me like a physical weight, doing my best not to look back. Finally, he turned away and spoke. "You know, I've been wondering for the longest time if it's just worth it to end it all." I looked at him in confusion. He dug his hand into his pocket. "I've been carrying this knife with me for the past few weeks, wondering when the right time would come." He pulled out a big red knife from his pocket. At that instant, my stomach dropped out of my body. I ordered him to put the knife away immediately. In a calm, emotionless voice, he commanded, "Pull over next to that sign." I did as he said. What followed still haunts me. He began to slit his forearm next to 3 other scars from previous assumed self-inflicted cuts, letting out a disturbing moan. I choked out the words, "You need to get out of my car right now, buddy." He looked at me again and said, "Get out of the car. I want to show you something." I told him no, and he raised his knife closer, an obvious threat. "Just get out for a second. There's something I want to show you behind that sign." I knew my life was on the line, and I had to be smart. "Yeah, okay, man, let's go." I opened the Jeep door, making a point of leaving it open, raised my hands, and backed away slowly. He, too, exited and started walking toward my side of the car. The exact moment he was directly behind the vehicle, I jumped back in, threw it into drive, and floored it down the road, never looking back. I got back home within 10 minutes, still breathing heavily and wanting to throw up. This was the most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me. If you see a hitchhiker on a dead road at odd hours of the night, do not take any course of action other than speeding right past them.
The Nighttime Capture. 3 months after I turned 16 in 2005, I got my first car, a '99 Toyota Camry. On a warm Saturday night, my friend Alex, his girlfriend Brianna, and I carpooled to one of his friend's big parties. We lived in rural Virginia, meaning big parties were a huge deal and everyone showed up. The house was about 5 to 10 minutes away, down the same 2-lane highway that cut through the woods. The party was held outside since his closest neighbors were relatively far away. I'll skip most of the party until the point when Brianna, who was supposed to be our designated driver, had to suddenly leave for a family emergency. Alex said it was fine and that we'd find a ride home. Well, fast forward a few more hours and a few more drinks, and I could barely walk straight. It was around 2 in the morning. Time to go. I looked for Alex but couldn't find him. In fact, it seemed like everyone I knew had already left. I was furious that Alex might have actually left without me. I asked to use the host's phone and tried Alex's home number twice before giving up, realizing I shouldn't wake his family. Literally not knowing what else to do, I dizzily stepped onto the road and started walking back home. I knew the walk would take anywhere from half an hour to an hour in my condition. Maybe 15 minutes into the walk, the faint glow of car headlights faded in behind me. Jumping for joy inside, I lifted my arm and stuck out my thumb. As the car neared, it slowed and stopped right next to me. The man driving the '98 Ford Explorer rolled down the window. "Where you headed?" he asked. I told him my house was just past the right turn, probably slurring my words beyond comprehension. He chuckled and told me to hop in. I thanked him and joyously got into the truck. I was exhausted and remember completely disregarding things the guy was asking me because I was so close to just passing out. And that's what happened.
The memories of being in that truck turned to a fog as I passed out. The next thing I remember, I woke up still in the moving truck. The guy looked at me and smirked, but didn't say anything. I looked around and realized the road we were on was unfamiliar. Where are we going?" I asked nervously. He replied, "So, what were you doing out this late anyway?" As the man answered my straightforward question with another irrelevant one, the sobering reality of the situation slammed into me. You can let me out anywhere," I told him. The man responded with a firm no. I felt the nausea rise, a wave of panic and sickness. I started to gag. The man took his eyes off the road to look at me, and that's when I had the perfect distraction. I turned in his direction and continued to gag, and he started to lean away and slow down the car. Thankfully, I had drunk as much as I did because I finally threw up, making a point of doing it all over the man's lap. The man yelled in sheer frustration and slammed on the brakes. That was my cue. I ran for my life into the woods and ducked behind some bushes. He came following with a flashlight. On 2 separate occasions, he shined the light straight over me without noticing. Eventually, I heard his footsteps walk even further into the woods past me. That was when I ran back to his truck, but he was smart enough to lock it. By some miracle, I saw another car approaching in the distance. I ran out into the middle of the street, waving my arms like a lunatic. They tried to avoid me, but I wouldn't let them. They were forced to stop, and I yelled at them to help me before he came back. Once I told them I was kidnapped by the man driving that Ford Explorer, the driver agreed to give me a lift, not to the police station or anything, but to my house. I made it back safely and couldn't thank the driver enough. I immediately woke up my parents. My dad wanted to know if I got his tag number, and then I wanted to punch myself in the face. I failed to get the simplest information that would have allowed me to properly report him. All I knew was that he drove a faded blue '99 Ford Explorer. I made sure to give Alex a piece of my mind, and part of me always held a grudge against him for abandoning me. I haven't seen him in 4 years, and this was actually the first time I've thought about this incident for almost a year now. Time fades, even the worst memories, but writing this down to share has once again made it fresh and terrifying in my mind.